Hello guys, welcome to another session. So here in this video, I'll be giving you a question and then we will discuss the answer for that. So remember, this is something which you need to take it as a revision session. Here, I won't be discussing like the way we used to discuss in the actual course. The topic completely we cannot discuss. Depends on the demand of the question. Will take up this is a 8 to 10 minute series. So that's exactly what we'll be doing. So let's look at the question first and then we will discuss the answer for it. Okay, so there's a question which is related to child labor. So here you see the question. So critically discuss the legal and institutional mechanisms for tackling child labor in the country. Guys, here, though you are talking about the legal and institutional mechanisms, we need to discuss that. We need to discuss what are the mechanisms which are available. We also need to discuss the challenges, but don't forget to bring in the sociological perspective. Okay, we need to talk different perspectives like Marxist perspective, functionalist perspective, etc. That also need to be there in your answer, and do not deviate from sociological answer to a general studies answer in these kind of questions. These kind of questions, the nature of the question itself will put you actually in trouble. You may deviate from a sociological lens to a normal GS answer. Okay. So let me give you an introduction and then I'll give you the content. I will not be discussing complete, child labor. For that, you need to go through the course. If you have not taken the course, you can get the PDF completely from the description, which is free of cost. You can download it. So child labor remains a pervasive issue in India, despite all the legal and institutional frameworks which aimed at eradicating it. Still, that is continuing. And it is defined as work that deprives children of their childhood, education, and dignity. Child labor is both a cause and consequences of socio-economic inequalities. So this is how you can just start your introduction. So there are legislative measures which has been enacted and institutional mechanisms also which has been established, but their implementation often falls short. That is necessitating a critical review. So this is the context that you're setting in. Last sentence that I have discussed is directly taken from the question, right? There are legislative measures and there are institutional mechanisms, but the implementation is an issue. So we need a critical review. That's exactly what we are going to do. So let's talk about the legal mechanism. See guys, we have constitutional provisions, Article 24, Article 39E, Article 21A. So Article 24 is talking about prohibition of the employment of children below the age of 14 in hazardous industries. 39E directs the state, it's actually a directive principle, the state to ensure children are not exploited economically or forced into vacations unsuited to their age. By not vacations, vocations means jobs, which is unsuited to their age. Okay. So if you look at Article 21A, that guarantees free and compulsory education for children, aged 6 to 14. So these are constitutional, protections. And various legislative framework, if you see Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986, that prohibit employment of children in specific occupations and regulates working conditions in permitted jobs. Coming to Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2015, that penalizes those employing children in hazardous work. Right to Education Act 2009, that emphasizes compulsory schooling as a deterrent to child labor. Okay, and then, Pencil Portal, that's an online platform for effective implementation of Child Labor Act that's allowing the citizens to report violations. Now, international commitments. See, India is a signatory to the International Labour Organization and conventions, that's including Convention 138, that's a minimum age for employment. Convention 182, prohibition of worst forms of child labor. Okay, now let's talk about institutional mechanisms. The government programs. That's what I mean by institutional mechanism, apart from the legislation, the constitution, other legal frameworks. Various government programs, you can talk about National Child Labor Project, NCLP. That's focusing on rehabilitation of children rescued from child labor, and then provides non-formal education and vocational training. Okay, then ICPS, Integrated Child Protection Scheme, that ensures care and rehabilitation of children in vulnerable situations. Then SSA, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, that promotes universal primary education to prevent child labor. Then role of civil society, NGOs like Bachpan, Bachao, Andolan, and Child Rights and CRY, play a significant role in rescuing children, spreading awareness, and advocating policy reforms. Various judicial interventions. the Supreme Court have played a pivotal role with various judgments emphasizing the importance of education and strict enforcement of child labor laws. Now, what are the challenges in tackling child labor? See, first is economic factors, then socio-cultural factors, then the weak implementation of law, education and awareness problem, all these you can mention. Poverty and unemployment that compel families to rely on children's earning. Lack of social security that again create the issue of marginalized communities. Right. Again, traditional practices often justify child labor in familial, traits. So that's the socio-cultural factors. Gender bias again result in girls being disproportionately burdened with unpaid domestic work. Also, insufficient monitoring and enforcement mechanisms. That's a weak implementation problem. Lack of coordination between central and state government, another issue. Poor quality of education and lack of infrastructure in rural areas that deter enrollment. So that's a problem with education and awareness. And limited awareness about child labor laws among the vulnerable population. So these all are the challenges. Let's look at some perspective on child labor, which you can incorporate in your answer. You can talk about Marxist analysis, functionalist analysis. There is always a functionalist approach. And then rights-based approach is there. Gendered analysis is also there. So any of this, a couple of this you can mention. So if you see from Marxist analysis, child labor is a symptom of capitalist exploitation, where the economic system perpetuates the inequality and forces the children into work. If you look at functionalist perspective, child labor can be seen as temporary response to the economic needs, but it disrupts the societal equilibrium by hindering human capital development. One side, it is a temporary response to economic needs. A rights-based approach, they emphasize the inherent rights of children to education, dignity, and healthy upbringing. And this aligns with Amartya Sen's capability approach, which stresses the role of opportunities in ensuring human development. Then gendered analysis. See, feminist scholars highlight how child labor disproportionately affects girls, confining them to domestic and caregiving roles. Okay, now what are the recommendations that you can do? You can go for strengthening implementation, economic interventions, education reforms, awareness campaign, global cooperation. All these are something which you can mention. So these are the recommendations you can mention to tackle the child labor issue. So enhance interagency coordination and ensure timely enforcement of laws. Regular audits of industries and small businesses to prevent illegal child labor practices. Then economic interventions, provide financial support to families below the poverty line. Develop livelihood programs to reduce dependence on child earnings. Then education reform that improve quality and accessibility of education, particularly in rural areas. Then introduce incentives like midday meals and scholarships to encourage the school attendance. Okay, again, awareness campaign. Leverage media and grassroots organizations to educate communities about the harms of child labor and the benefits of education. Right? Again, you talk about strengthening international partnerships and cooperation to curb the cross-border trafficking of children. So these are the solutions, the suggestions you can mention in your answer. So we have covered everything: the issues, the legal setup, and the legislative framework, and the institutional framework, the challenges, recommendation, the perspective. So this is covering everything which is required for a perfect sociological answer. So the conclusion, now to eradicate child labor in India, it requires a multi-pronged approach that you need to combine the strong legal framework with effective institutional mechanisms and grassroots intervention. So significant progress has been made so far, but persistent challenges that actually underscore the need for sustained efforts. And empowering children through education, economic support, and social awareness that can break the cycle of poverty and exploitation. And that will foster a society where every child enjoy the right to a dignified childhood. So this is how you can conclude. So guys, that's about this session. Thank you so much for attending. If you like the video, share it with your friends who are preparing with sociology also. And in case if you're looking for mentorship or test series or the course, check out the details in the description. So see you in the next video. Thank you so much.